Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we are starting a brand new series. I'm going to write my dream 10th edition codex. So in this series, I'm going to take this codex and I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to make my own FAQ errata, and I'm going to show you what I think this book needs to be better. A lot of these changes are not ones GW will probably just implement. Not that they're going to take my word for anything, but it's just more of a fun thought experiment. What would I do if I was writing the codex? So that's what we got. I'll dive into a lot of this in the video. If you're looking forward to this, do subscribe to stay updated on all of our content. Like the video, that does help us out with the whole algorithm stuff. And if you want to support the content, not only do we just cover fun videos like this for the bugs, we'll do some competitive stuff, battle reports, and all sorts of things. And most importantly, we want to thank our members for allowing us to do all of this. Now, let's dive into today's video. So as an overview for this, there's a lot going on here. I'll start in just a little bit of the background of why I'm doing this. Then I don't know how many episodes this is going to break up, but we have a army and detachment rules where I will tweak, rewrite, whatever the case is. We'll be covering that today. I'll do an episode on the characters, how I would tweak the characters, why I would tweak them. We might do 1 to 2 episodes on the rest of the data sheets. There's a lot of them in the Tyranid Codex, so we'll see. And then from there, I've got some ideas on some custom stuff. There are some things that maybe I would say, let's add to the book or bring back to the book without giving too many spoilers. So there might be an episode on that. There might be a conclusion. There might be a wrap-up video. And maybe I'll get Connor or Matt to join me in a battle report if they're willing to play against this updated codex, just to have some fun, or maybe we'll do a narrative report with it or something like that. Not right away in this video is launching if you're watching this right away, but I will work on an Excel spreadsheet, so if you're watching this later in the future, maybe you'll see it pop up. Check the description below. I want to create a little spreadsheet that is like a errata or whatever, in case you guys just want to play around with it for fun, but it will not be ready when I launch this because I'm going to put everything in it, and I don't want to show off everything before I do the videos on it. So we'll get there, don't worry. So now, let's get into a little bit of an overview here. So the background, I love writing rules for games. Ever since I was like, I don't know, in middle school or elementary school, I was making up my own board games or card games or whatever the case was. They probably weren't all that great. If you guys are a old Yu-Gi-Oh fan, and you remember Dungeon Dice Monsters, I wrote a game. There's a board game, you can look it up, called Blockus. Maybe I'll just put a picture of it here. I turned that game with some other random toys I found into a Dungeon Dice Monster game, and I loved it. All sorts of things. I've always been writing rules. Always making stuff up for games, and I love it. It is a goal of mine to, at some point, launch a successful game on one of the Kickstarter type platforms like Kickstarter, GameFound, whatever. I have a bazillion ideas. I have a notepad in my phone that's just got lists of ideas when I come up with something, like in a car ride or something like that. One of these days we'll get it out there, but I gotta make something that is worth it. So experience for why I'm writing this codex, rewriting this one slightly. Like I said, I've been playing for Tyranids now for about 14 years, back in 5th edition. And really, I have played consistently through every edition. Granted, my time in 5th edition and 6th edition, I was very young. Very young. I was in high school. Maybe played much more for fun, casually, narrative, whatever. Definitely no tournament scene. Tournaments weren't that big in 40k anyway then. But towards the tail end of 8th, all the way through 9th and 10th, I've been playing quite competitively. So I know, I like to think, what makes the 40k codex good, bad, and I know it can make something overpowered, so I know how to probably balance it, not make anything too crazy. My goal, I know I'm calling this my dream codex. We'll call it my dream 10th edition codex, because I'm not going to just create a whole bunch of stuff out of thin air and stick it into this book. I really am going to take this book and tweak it maybe line by line in a rule. There will be some parts where I'm like, I scrap that rule, put this rule in its place. It's so close. This book is so close to being good in terms of the overall fluff and narrative and how things play out. It's just not quite there, and I'm going to see if I can make it there. You know what? And let me know your opinions down below. So in this, we are going to get into army rules. So today I'm going to talk about the Synapse, Shadow on the Warp, and the Detachment rules, their stratagems and enhancements. For you guys at home, I'm going to have it here on the side so you guys can kind of play along or watch along. But I recommend if you want to look, take your codex and watch along with me, because I don't throw everything in here. I will kind of go line by line and make notes. So if you want to have your codex with you, grab it now, pause the video, grab the codex, and then let's get into it. So we'll start with Synapse. General thoughts on Synapse is I like it. You know, the bubble makes morale easier to do with the battle shocking, 3 dice. Yes, your leadership 8 on most things, but you know, you are it's fine. It's fine. It's missing the mark on what Synapse was. Synapse, all the way back in 5th edition, was a 12-inch bubble, auto pass all morale or whatever. Those were good. I'm going to go somewhere half and half in here and how I'd change it. My big complaint right now really is 6 inches around a Synapse creature just doesn't seem big enough. I don't want it to cover the whole battlefield, but at the same time, it feels weird that my Hive Tyrant cannot command these Gaunts via Shadow in the Warp, or cannot influence them if they are only 7 inches away from me. I feel like it should be a bit more. I'm going to change Synapse range to 9 inches. Furthermore, we're going to change up the rules a little bit more. Instead of 3d6 add them all up, we're going to do 3d6, take the 2 highest, and we're going to make sure this works for any test involving leadership, not just battle shock, because there are some miscellaneous rules in the codex that is a leadership check. All leadership check, all battle shock, anything that involves using the leadership dice, leadership statistic, 3d6 take the 2 highest. Now you say, okay, 3d6 too high. 3d6 take the 2 highest is not very good when your leadership 8. It's not, but we're gonna say you can use the leadership of any Synapse creature within 6, and with that we're gonna bump the leadership of most of our Synapse creatures down from 7 to 6. Might even take someone like Swarmlord down to 5. That way, 3d6 take the 2 highest, you're much more likely to get that 7, you're much more likely to pass, but it still allows for some, you know, RNG of dice rolling to have you fail somewhat easy rolls, which GW clearly likes to have in books like these. There's always a chance you fail, which is fine. It's a dice game. You want that. I think that feels more on par with the lore. Not only are you just rolling dice and saying, all right, pass, all right, pass. It is, you're using the leadership of this, you're really using the Synapse creatures to their full effect. And I don't feel like it's overcomplicating the rules, which is another thing I do want to stay away from, overcomplicating things. So that is Synapse. Let me know. Now, Shadow in the Warp, I'm sure this one's going to be a bit controversial to people. Currently, my thoughts on the rule, it is very swingy. It can be game-changing, otherwise it can be useless. Spoilers to a video you'll see on Friday. I played 3 tournament this weekend. Every single game was, Shadow in the Warp was immensely crucial. That's just the way it happens. So my goal in this video is, I'm going to try and balance it out. I still like the swinginess of the 1-turn blammo, but it needs to be more than that, and that 1 turn can't be as powerful, if that makes sense, to try and help balance it out a little bit. So how I do it is still have the once per game ability. However, we're going to change things up. Models with the Shadow in the Warp keyword are all going to emit a 9-inch aura of -1 to battle shock tests. This way, that once per game battle shock check is still, you know, army wide, but it's really gonna feel an impact on the units that are close to the front line, close to Synapse creatures, and not so much all the way in the back, like, you know, way in the back, that unit takes a hard -1. Now you might say, oh, but the Neuro Tyrant. No, we're going to take that rule away from the Neuro Tyrant because a potentially army-wide -2 to your battle shock is way too much. So that rule is going to go away. We are also going to add one more stipulation that will only come into play against certain factions, but I still think it's fluff-wise and important to do. And this one, we're going to have enemy psyker models when they do their psychic tests, like the Tyranid's Onslaught on the Onslaught on the Flying Hive Tyrant, or on the Foot Tyrant has Onslaught, and Paroxysm is on the Flying Hive Tyrant, or Typhus has his, roll a dice on a 2+, this happens, on a 6+, this happens. We're going to say psychers within this Shadow in the Warp range are -1 to those tests. However, the bad stuff that happens on a 1 still only happens on an unmodified roll of 1. I think this just plays a little bit extra into psychers are going to struggle with Shadow in the Warp, messing with their brains, which is kind of how it's supposed to be. All in all, that's how I like it. Shadow in the Warp, it still should be effective throughout the game, because there are other instances throughout the game that cause battle shock, and then if you're close to the Synapse creatures, it just makes it that much more painful. So Shadow in the Warp should be a good buff, but not a crazy powerful one for the whole once per game thing. So we'll see. Maybe it leans to being too powerful, maybe not. We'll see. Detachment changes. So we're going to start, again, I'm going to go through all of the stuff with the detachment. So we've got Invasion Fleet first. Again, thoughts on the rule. Generally like it. It's probably our most competitive one, tied with another detachment. Most of the stuff here is great, and there's not a lot worth changing. There are a few things I'm going to change. So the first thing in the detachment rule, keep them all the way they are. However, for Swarming Instincts, the sustained hits one, I'm going to add the mounted keyword to that as well, because some armies bring a lot of mounted, and it feels bad when our detachment just doesn't do anything in that regard. So I'm going to add mounted to that keyword, or the keyword mounted to that area. For the enhancements, we're going to tweak 2 of them. Perfectly Adapted is going to see one minor tweak, and that is that the reroll can be used on the bearer's unit, not just the bearer. And where this comes in, really, is if you want to reroll a charge, technically, if you are, let's say, a winged prime with a unit of warriors, you can't do that because the unit is making a charge, not the bearer. So with this tweak, you can essentially reroll charges for the bearer if it's leading a unit. And I think that's the way it should be. Synaptic Linchpin, it's going to change a little bit. It's going to have 2 stipulations here because I don't really like the way it's worded now. The first one is it's going to give the character Synapse if it doesn't already have Synapse. And then if it does already have Synapse, we're going to bump its Synapse range to 12 inches. Quite simple there. Again, point values I'll address at the end because there's going to be some changes in points in some of these. Maybe not these ones, but that's it. And then going into stratagems, really, I like all of the stratagems in here. On one exception, I don't like how Death Frenzy you pay a CP and then on a 4+, so it's a 1 CP of 50-50. I'm going to make it a 2+ roll to fight on death. That way there's still that chance that you don't fight on death, but it's still a good strat for character to do that. So that is Invasion Fleet. The next one in the book is Crusher Stampede. Now, this was the hardest one to work on. All these other changes, pretty easy to come up with and think about how they would affect an overall game of 40k. Crusher Stampede is so tough because an army of monsters can be so powerful that already some factions can't handle more than a handful of monsters. Give them a whole army, they're already going to suffer. So got to make the rules good where they help the monsters, but it is a very, very fine line to making them overpowered. Take a look at the original Crusher Stampede. -1 damage and a 5-up invuln on all of your monsters. Absurdly overpowered. The Crusher Stampede we currently have in this index, or codex, not very good at all. Some benefit, but not very good at the detachment rule. So in this one, we are going to scrap the existing rules from the detachment rules, and we're going to say all monsters gain 2 OC. So that is going to be, most of ours are going to go somewhere between 5 and 7 OC. That allow them, single monsters, to compete on some objectives. Not all of them. Battleline are still going to outmatch them at most places, but they're going to help compete with those. And we're going to give them an ability, a furious charge, as you could say, +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge. Just give them that like furious charge of that crushing impact that kind of, a crusher stampede should have. And then the +1 attack, it's nice. It's not groundbreaking, but it's something nice to just give them that little oomph. So that's the changes I have. Enhancements, again, the enhancements in this detachment are garbage. We are going to rewrite them. Ominous Presence is, at the start of each fight phase, enemy models with an engagement range of this character must take a battle shock test. If they fail, they're -1 to hit. That kind of name makes it feel like, all right, the fighter or the person fighting this character is a little hesitant. Maybe they're not going to hit as well. I think it's a good enhancement. Nothing too crazy, and they always have a chance to just pass it. Enraged Reserves, we're going to take that detachment rule that we used to have and just slap it right here. Give your monster +1 to hit if below starting strength, and +2 if below, +1 to wound if below half strength. It's fine. It's fine. Null nodes. This one, makes me seem like some aura that's being produced right now. It's a horrible ability, but we're going to make it a very nice one to have on certain characters, and that is the units cannot be set up within 12 inches of the bear. So this is the annoying infiltrator rule that Space Marines have and some other units. We're going to give this to one of our characters, which will help because if you're playing Crusher Stampede, you can't really block out the board as much. And then finally, Monstrous Nemesis. Simple one, start of each fight phase, the bear gains D3 extra attack. Maybe it could be a little bit more, but I don't want to make certain monsters too powerful. So those are that. We do have stratagems. I do really like the stratagems in Crusher Stampede, so we just have 2 small tweaks. The first one is Savage Roar. We're going to change the last line to say, if that battle shock test was failed, or if the enemy is already battle shocked, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Because right now it's kind of lame that they have to retake a test even if they're already battle shocked. And then finally, Massive Impact. We're just going to rewrite it to Tank Shock as a stratagem. So it's just right now Massive Impact is kind of just a worse. It's not a worse Tank Shock, but it's not necessarily it. I guess I didn't do the math on it, and I just want Tank Shock. So we'll do that to make things easy. Then we go into Unending Swarm. This will be a quick one. Again, like Invasion Fleet, I love Unending Swarm. I think it's pretty much perfect outside of the enhancements. It plays fluffy. It's powerful, but not overpowered. Against maybe some armies, it's a bit overpowered, but not enough to warrant any change. So, best written one. Let's just go right into it. Detachment rule changes, nothing. Leave it as is. Love that. Enhancement changes, there's going to be some here. So, Relentless Hunger, we're going to change to give the bear advance and charge. That really won't come up much. You don't really want to advance and charge with gargoyles, so okay. But it'll give some melee warriors an option if you want to use them in this detachment, have an extra synapse range. Really, this detachment's all about bringing bugs, lots of little bugs, so it's something. Naturalized Camouflage, we're going to change it. Instead of just giving 3 units cover, because they're already going to have it, we're going to select 2 endless multitude of units, and they cannot be shot outside of 18-inch ranges on the first battle round. I feel like that makes a bit more of a meaningful impact. If your opponent wants to shoot them, they have to come closer. Maybe they're already going to come closer. I don't know, but I think it's better. 12 inches is way too powerful, so we're going to stick with 18. Piercing Talons, instead of the weird, extra AP on critical wounds, which is whatever, we're just going to say the bear's unit gains lethal hits. Again, you probably only see these on Melee Wars, so that's cool. Actually makes them really powerful, but yeah, it is what it is. And Adrenalized Onslaught, we're going to keep that the same because that's fine. These enhancements, again, they really don't benefit the little bugs because the little bugs don't have characters to lead them besides Gargoyle. So it's just kind of a general flaw with the how 10th edition is going, sort of thing. And the stratagems, we're going to keep those exactly the same because, again, I love them and they're perfect. So going into Assimilation Swarm, oh boy, do I have a lot for this one. You guys know I love Assimilation Swarm. I love it. I love it. It's just kind of that cool unending wave, but it's a different unending wave. It's a regenning monstrosity wave. I really do like that. It's an okay detachment. It's close to being great, but it's not quite there. There are some things we're going to add to this to make it a little bit better. First off, and again, I'm not going to... I think with these rules, you'll see they'll be better. I don't think it's going to be anything like, oh, overpowered, crazy, maybe even not super competitive, but I think it's better. First off, number of units are gaining the Harvester keyword. Norm Assimilator, the Assimilation Swarm, you got to do it, even if it doesn't really totally assimilate things. It is. The Parasite of Mortrex is going to gain the Harvester keyword. And I'm going to throw in our Toxic Boys, the Toxicrin and the Venomthropes, also to give them assimilate. I know they're not really doing the assimilation, but I feel like our poison buddies need a home in one of the detachments besides Invasion Fleet. So I'm going to throw them in here just to add a little bit more variety and maybe make the Toxicrins more fun. So for the actual detachment rule, we're going to tweak things a little bit here. It might be a little confusing, so just follow along and I'll try and be careful with it. So we're going to tweak the rule to being Harvester units regen 1 unit if in range of an objective, just like it is. However, we're going to have 2 modes to this. We're going to have one if you don't control the objective and one if you do control the objective. If you don't control the objective, one model, infantry or monster, heals D3 wounds. That way, if you're still fighting for the objectives, you can still get a little bit of regen, but it's not great. Endless Multitude, D3 models. If you do control the objective, then we're going to bring it back to what the rulebook or the codex already has, with one exception, that the model regen is a flat 3 wounds, so the monsters will just gain 3 wounds. The same thing will apply for infantry units. You can bring back 1 on full health, and then Endless Multitude will change that to D3 plus 1. So it's technically in some ways a little worse than it is currently, but there's potential to be more. I didn't just want to make it a flat. I guess I could have made it a flat 3. Actually, we'll do that. Endless Multitude units just regain a flat 3 there. So I'll make that change. All right, and then into the rest of it. So for the Assimilation Swarm enhancements, they're great. I'm going to leave them as is, no touching them there. For the stratagems, there are 2 small changes. The first one is Ablative Carapace. I'm going to change it to a 5-up Feel No Pain for Harvester units, but I'm going to tone it down to Battle Tactic and 1 CP. I think it'll be a lot more useful. Yes, the potential of a 4-up Feel No Pain is very powerful, but having it be a 5-up Battle Tactic 1 CP, it's going to be a lot more... it's just going to be there a lot more instead of the maybe once or twice a game. You could probably use this every turn. And then Secure Biomass. I'm just changing this to a Battle Tactic stratagem. Unless GW fixes their own rules and says you can use any stratagem for free, whatever. Changing this to a Battle Tactic strat is huge because the lethal hits is so powerful, and why it's strategic play doesn't really make sense to me. So that's Assimilation Swarm. Let me know. Not a ton of huge changes, but some changes. Vanguard Onslaught now. Again, another detachment that is very close to being perfect, but there are a few things I want to just tweak. So it's fun. It rewards that high skill cap movement shenanigan gameplay. And just a few tweaks. Detachment rules. No changes to the actual detachment rule itself, but we're going to give Trigon, Moloch, and Ravners the Vanguard Invader keyword because they really do need a home in something other than Invasion Fleet, and this is perfect for them. So you'll see these units a lot more. It'll be cool to see Trigons pop up, charge, they can fall back, charge somewhere else. The Ravners is perfect for them. So yeah, the enhancements, we're going to keep them the same. I think they're good. They're not overly crazy powerful. Some of them are very good, but I think they're great how they are. And then finally, one stratagem change on Surprise Assault. Similar to Crusher Stampede, we're just going to reword it to say in the last line, if they fail the battle shock test or the unit was already battle shocked, then the secondary effect of +1 to wound comes in as well. Just makes that strat all the more makes sense, I guess. No need to fail 2 battle shocks in one round. Synaptic Nexus, some changes, some decent changes in our final detachment here. So in general, I think it's quite good. Maybe just a little bit of things we'll tweak. Detachment rule, I do really want to add another imperative. I'm going to stick with these 3 for now, though. The enhancements is really where a lot of the change happens. So first off, Power of the Hive Mind. We're going to just change that to -1 damage for the bear. We're going to take that from Synaptic Control. I have my things for that. Synaptic Control is now going to get reworded. Also, Psychostatic Disruption will stay the way it is. Synaptic Control will be at the start of the command phase. Select 1 friendly Tyranid unit on the battlefield. They're always counted being within synapse range of the bearer, if the bearer is on the battlefield, until the start of the next command phase. This harkens back to an old stratagem, I think it was from the Leviathan pack, where you could do something very similar to this. And I just think Synaptic Control makes it, it feels like, you're controlling one unit. And that allows you to be a little bit more free with, say, a Hormagaunt charge, a Ravener charge, a Lone Screamer killer, something just running up the board. You can at least keep them in synapse and help with potential battle shock tests or whatever. And then finally, the Dirge Heart of Karis. It's an okay one right now, but I think a better way with the changes we're making to battle shock and all of that, a better one for me is models within 6 inches of the bear are -1 to their OC. I believe something similar was in the last codex. I honestly don't think I ever really used that in Relic, is what they were. But now, -1 OC if within 6 inches of the bear. I think that's pretty good. And then for the stratagems, I do like them a lot. We're going to tweak Smothering Shadows to fit our new army rules. So instead of a Synapse unit, it's a Shadow in the Warp unit. I think out of this codex, that only changes the Neurolictor now takes advantage of this strat instead of just the Synapse creatures. And Synaptic Channeling, we will tweak to, say, increase the Synapse range of a unit to 12 inches for a turn. Other than that, the detachment or the stratagems here are pretty good. So that will leave us off for today. Let me know what your initial reactions are to these rules. Again, we're going to go through and potentially tweak a lot of data sheets in the codex. Some things might gain a strength. They might lose a wound. They might do this or that, whatever the case is. So take this with the idea that you haven't seen the full book yet, but as army rules, let me know what you think. Are some of these things too powerful? Because if you think they're too powerful, please let me know. I feel like nothing's too powerful. If anything, I erred on the side of, okay, it's a nice change, but is it going to change too much? Which, it's better. But yeah, that's what I got. And of course, at the end, maybe I'll try and adjust points as best I can. That one might be tricky, but we'll do it. So let me know what you think. Stay tuned to episode 2. I'm not sure when the next one will come out. Maybe in a week or two, probably in a week or two, and then we'll go from there. And again, subscribe. I do have a fun surprise at the end of this series, so hopefully we get to see that in full. Thank you guys, thank you members, and we'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.